Good evening, everybody. This is Jeff Colson with Junior Hockey Advisor. We've got a ton of stuff tonight. I'm so glad you jumped in and watched. Got a light crowd tonight, but remember, this show and the rebroadcast, we are amazing. I just wish that the live audience would get as big as the rebroadcast audience. We're picking up huge followings there. What I'd ask, though, is if you can share this video, tag some people, invite them in, get the information out. There's just a lot of great stuff going on. I want to make sure that we cover everything we possibly can. Thank you so much for those of you that are telling me where you're from. I love it when you let me know. New Jersey, good to see you. Pennsylvania, good to see you. And as we grow over the course of the night, I'll try to say hello to everybody that I can. Remember, I'll answer as many questions live as I can. Most of the questions, though, you've already asked, and I'm trying to incorporate them into the broadcast so we can cover everything. Remember, my expertise, I'm not a family advisor. I am an expert in the process, how this all moves. How do you go from youth to junior, junior to college? I'll discuss all the different issues, all the different junior leagues, and we try to make this work for everybody and hopefully make it a little bit entertaining as we go along too. So normally, this is the part of the show where I jump in and I tell you a little bit about my family excursion for the weekend, because we haven't been taking vacations. We've been actually going on these day trips. Well, in Rochester, according to last night, we were supposed to have this huge storm today. We were supposed to be out in Sodas Bay on the water, on the boat. Didn't work out quite that way, so I stayed home. Then we had a decent day. It ended up being a nice day out. So, yeah, you win some when you lose some. But last week I talked about trying to build in and incorporate a little bit of information about travel and some great things you can do when you travel, especially if you're still on the youth side or if you're in the junior side and you're doing showcases. And I picked Boston today, and I did something a few times, and I want to tell you a little bit about a Boston trip we did a couple years ago. And when I say this won't take long, I'll get onto the good stuff. We'll get into the breaking news. There's a lot of great stuff, but humor me. I gotta tell you a little bit of a story. So this is Harvard. My daughter got invited to go to a Harvard camp, a showcase camp with a bunch of players, prospects, and the typical college showcase camp. Good experience for her. If you've never been to the Harvard campus, it's worth going to. If you haven't been to the rink, it's phenomenal. It's really a good experience. Old school, a lot of history. It's really good thing. So when we got up there, I decided I wanted to turn this into a family event and go camping. So Boston's down here, way up here. That's Salem. Okay, yeah, where the witches are, Seven Gables, all that stuff. But Salem's pretty cool, and it's a really nice trip to get up into Salem, and there's a lot of things to do up there, and there's some great food. So what I did was, my daughter was staying on campus at Harvard for the camp, and what I did was I took it every day from Salem to Boston Harbor. I took the water taxi, the ferry, whatever it's called. It cost a few bucks, jumped on, and then I got this amazing view of the water every day coming in. And then what I did after that was I actually walked. Now I walked down this side of the river. So every day I walked through Boston Commons. Cheers, I stopped in at Cheers and had lunch one day at the Cheers bar. I got to see BU, I got to see Fenway, got to see the Charles River, and I got to see the people out there doing that little row thing with the little skinny things that I could never fit into, at least not these days. Did you notice, though, I'm losing my neck on this broadcast? I do have a neck in there somewhere. I'll get it out one of these days. But this was awesome. It took a couple hours, but stop and smell the roses as you're going through this process as a parent. Take the time to try to incorporate some other things in. If it's in season and you get an NHL game in, or maybe in the fall, hopefully there's sports again where you can do this stuff at. But a baseball game, something where you're doing something and seeing something. I'm so glad that we as a family made some choices to do some other things along the way, even if it's something like playing a tournament purposely in Lake Placid, just so you can get up to Lake Placid and see where the '80 Olympic team was. Like I said, humor me a little bit. I got to get through that. But it was an awesome experience. I'm going to try to talk about some of these once in a while. If you can ever incorporate a tournament or your gameplay in the Boston market, and then try to do some camping or do some some things like the water taxi and move your way in. Nobody usually thinks of Boston that way when they go in for hockey, but I found it to be extremely fun, and I got a chance to do a lot of fun things on that trip. And we did some whale watching out of Salem, and we did the old boats and all that stuff too. So you ready for some breaking news? Let's get to it. All right, the breaking news tonight, we got a lot. I guess the biggest news is coming right from Junior Hockey Advisor. It's finally out. The Hiring a Family Advisor and Building a Successful Relationship document is out. It's free. It is on our Junior Hockey Advisor Facebook page. It is on our Junior Hockey Advisor discussion group already. You can get those there. There is nothing, no strings attached. This is a great document. It walks you through the process. It gives you a checklist. Already had some great feedback today from some people. And I was getting feedback from people that have already gone through the process, that have already have a D1 committed player, or they're already past the process. They're giving me feedback on this and said, they loved it. Once again, there's no strings attached to this. There's no, it's not a clickbait at the end where, hey, here's a document, but sign up for this. Now, later on, I might solicit some people for some things because I am in the business of doing webinars. I do seminars and things like that, but not on this document. This is a great document for you. I hope you grab it. So many of you are asking for it. So many of you wanted that document. I hope you take advantage of it and find it to be useful for you. Got some people coming in already. I see hi from Colleen, but I don't see where you're from. Oh, I see Philadelphia after that. Scottsdale, Arizona's on board. I'm glad to see you all jumping on board. It's going to be a great night. And I hope you're all ready because there are so many things going on. Things are starting to move. And I guess the biggest news we have tonight is the Buffalo Junior Sabres. For those of you that are not aware, the Buffalo Junior Sabres have suspended their season. They play in the Ontario Junior Provincial League, it's not called that anymore, the Ontario Junior Hockey League, the OJHL, and they suspended play. Now, part of that is due to, it's all due to the pandemic. This is a solid organization. They've got the best facility right now going in hockey. They have a very well-managed program. They do an extremely good job, and it's extremely disturbing to see this team have to take a year off. But let's just hear what I want to go to the actual commissioner of the OJHL, and this is only about a minute or two, bear with me. Listen to what he has to say, and this is courtesy of Quinty, the Quinty newspaper, and I've got the credits on there for that, but listen to what he has to say about this, and then we'll get right back.
The phase will allow our players to get back on the ice in 4-week segments. The 4-week segments are there because that's the way the provincial government is going to be moving forward to different stages. So if they open up from 50 to 100 people to 250, whatever it may be, and we're hearing what's going to happen is they're going to do that in the 4-week phases. So we're going to train them in 4 weeks. What that allows us to do is to put us in a position to be ready to go to step 2, and step 2 is full games. So in phase 1, some of the non-contact type scrimmage, inter-squad type stuff they can play according to their health regions. And what that region in the municipality allows the teams to do, they will be able to do. Once all of our clubs can go into full contact games, that's when we'll announce the schedule. And we'll revise the schedule depending on exactly what time. So if it's in October, November, September, whatever date it might be that we start, we'll build a schedule off of that. We will be prepared when we get the green light from our provincial government. We play within about 9 different health regions that we have to get those approval as well once the provincial government comes down. And then our 22 communities as well have to make decisions in their own facilities. So there's a lot of different levels above us that have to give approval before we can go and play.
What is the deal with international players?
There's a federal regulation that doesn't allow U.S. citizens to come in. So what happens is if they can't get into the country, they're not allowed to obviously play here.
Now, can you tell me, as far as best case scenario, do you anticipate a later start?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So we're preparing schedules from September all the way. I think probably into January and February we can go to get a season in. And it would obviously just reduce our playoffs and that type of stuff. What we don't want to do is add extra games into a shorter condensed schedule. We just believe that our athletes at the point where they're in their development, we don't want to put too much stress on a game. And so what will happen here is we're going to have to wait to see where this whole thing goes.
Wow. Well, thank you so much to Quinty for the newspaper. And also want to thank the reporter on that. I've got his name down. I put him on the screen, but I'll make sure I get to him later in the broadcast. Sorry about that. But did you hear a couple of things there? First of all, it's the national law that is in the way for these teams to preclude players, American players at all, from coming in right now. So the fact of the matter is right now, as it stands, Americans are not going to be playing in Canada the way it works right now. Canadians are still eligible to play in the States, but Americans aren't going to be making the trip up there, as it stands right now. Now, that's coming right from one of the commissioner's mouths. She heard it. But I thought it was also interesting to hear something else that he said. What he also said there was they have a plan in place from September to February for their start dates where they can still get the season in. I think that's extremely interesting that the season can be pushed all the way back to January and February, and they're still willing to try to get the season in. Now, I'm sure it'll modify the playoffs because, instead of having a month and a half of playoffs, I'm sure it'll condense it. And I'm sure the season will not be a 60-game season. I'm assuming they would drop it down to a 25, 35-game season. But he does go on to say, I don't know if he said it there, but he does go on to say that in this situation, if they have a shortened season, they're actually going to keep the amount of games per week the same. They're not going to try to tax the athletes and have the athletes play more. So that's extremely important to know. It's extremely important to understand that process on that. Let's get to a couple other things in the news. The next news piece is going to the USPHL. And the USPHL came out and announced their dates this week when they'll start things up. Their youth programs are going to start at the beginning of September. And then their USPHL juniors, that's their premier and elites, are going to start on September 18th with the NCDC following on September 28th. So that's the earliest so far anybody has announced that I'm aware of. I think everybody knows that earlier this week, at least it was on our sites, that the NAHL also announced their 46th season this year. They're going to be starting their season October 9th. So they're going to be a little bit later than the NCDC, but of the big boys are the second to announce. We had the BCHL that is going to start in December, and now we have the North American Hockey League that's going to start October 9th. So I see the Colorado's there, Wisconsin, by way of Wisconsin, Hershey, PA is in the house. We've got Louisiana. I think that's the first time we've seen Louisiana on board. We've got Bay City, Michigan. Bay City, Michigan is about 40 miles away from where I grew up in the Thumb. So it's always good to see some people from some of the areas up there. And that's if you ever get up in that area, Frankenmuth is the place to go. That's where you get your chicken. If you're ever in Michigan, make sure you dial that in for one of your trips. I'll give you lots of great tips on where to go in Michigan as far as places to visit and see. I also see one of our good visitors coming in from down in the New York City area. That's great to see. So we're done with the null. Let's see what else we've got here. We've also got an NA3HL story. NA3HL posted this week that they saw record numbers of advancements to the NAHL draft. Be very careful with this information. This is the stuff I'm talking about. Remember, the NAHL, if I read that, and it's hard to read, it's small even for me, and I'm right here in front of it, they said that they set a record. I think it's at 26 NA3HL players moving up in the draft to the NAHL. First of all, they're just drafted. But remember, there's 27 teams. So last year they broke the record at 26. They had 26 teams. The year before that, you get the picture, okay? Just be careful on this information because it still is. I got to watch that tonight. I do have a special button just in case I get a coughing fit. I've had a sore throat all day, so I got a special button there. If you just see something pop up and it's not me, that's because I got to go off camera for a second and cough. But this NA3HL information is interesting. it is still the best model on paper. They are actually attempting to push players from the NA3HL up. Just keep in mind that the forced movement may not catch traction. Not all these players actually make rosters, and we've talked about that in the past. But I'm glad to see the NA3HL is doing this, and I'm glad to see the NAHL doing this. Just keep in mind that record breaking is because the teams have to each take a pick, and that's where the numbers come from. Ossining, New York, I don't even know where that's at. But watching from New Hampshire, I'm sure you're over on the Adirondack side of the house, I'm assuming, from that part of New York. Philadelphia is on board. Muskegon is on board. Great to see you there. New Jersey, good to see you too. Virginia, Arizona, now we've got a party going. We've got lots of things going on. So that's all the news there. Let's jump into some commentary on some of this stuff. Okay, that's that button I was talking about. So let's talk a little bit about this whole process. So Buffalo, they're out. What does this mean? Well, first of all, I got the numbers on their actual rosters, and just as far as players and player movement there, they've got 499s that are moving on, 2 already committed to college. That leaves about 6 2000s, 6 or 7 2001s, and 6 2002s. Now, the top of their roster is fine. The top 3 or 4 guys, one went 3rd overall in the USHL draft. He's going to be fine. The next player, the number 2 player, actually number 2 in points. He could actually be the best player or the worst player, but number 2 in points. He must be decent because he's already got a college commit. He's going to be fine. And then they had 5 or 6 guys that were already involved in the NAHL through either tenders or through the draft. So that leaves a handful. I think we've got about 8 or 10 players. And I would imagine these 8 or 10 players are going to end up in the EHL. They're going to end up in the NCDC. And I highly doubt they'll all get absorbed into the USHL and the North American Hockey League, but I think you'll see them stick around in the game. It's a shame. It's a shame that this has happened, but there's more to it than just Buffalo. Remember, Buffalo plays in a Canadian league, but they're an American team. You know, we've got to think about a few other things here too. Here's the BCHL, and this is the map of the BCHL. And if you notice, it is British Columbia, add the state of Washington on the bottom there on the south. And that's where the Wenatchee Wild play. And they're an American team. So that used to be a North American Hockey League franchise until I think around 2008. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere right around there is when Wenatchee went over to the BCHL. So we've got a franchise up there that is practically all American. There's only a couple Canadians on that franchise. So with that said, you got Wenatchee that's also part of this mix along with Buffalo. And then you've got a few extras. So besides Wenatchee and Buffalo, you know, you've got the Superior International Junior Hockey League. Now, here's the map of it. You can see that it's the perimeter around the Great Lakes, especially on the west. This league is small. It is part of the CGHL. It is considered junior hockey, but it is the least productive of the leagues. It's still trying to find their footprint and placement of players. It doesn't matter. There's 2 American teams in here. Okay, you're going to try to say this one 10 times fast. Thief River Falls Norskies. Okay, that's a mouthful. That is a mouthful. But them along with the Wisconsin Lumberjacks, predominantly Americans on both rosters across the board. Now, those players have no place to play. Will the league survive? Will the SIJHL survive? Yeah, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Canadian teams. There were 2 American teams. They're going to be fine. However, overall, you just add them into the mix. And when I mean add them into the mix, now you've got a bigger picture here. You've got Wenatchee, you've got Buffalo, and there might be some junior B leagues that have Americans that I'm not aware of that are down further on the remember, there's hundreds of teams. So, but I'm picking all of them. And Thief River, I hope that's the right icon for your program. I'm not sure if that's the current one. Wisconsin, the same thing. I'm hoping I'm using your current ones. I haven't used either one of your logos in the past. So, but these are 4 American teams playing in Canada. I really hope that some thought's being put into this. I really hope that the NAHL and USA Hockey is possibly considering, at least with Wenatchee, at least with the two teams in the SIJHL, maybe it's too late for Buffalo, to reach out to the leadership. Hockey Canada, USA Hockey, are you sitting down and talking right now and seeing if you can give a provisional pass to these teams to allow them to play an exhibition season in one of the U.S. leagues, one of the sanctioned U.S. leagues? So maybe, Wenatchee can come back in the North American Hockey League for a season as an exhibition team. I'm just hoping that there's some conversations going on so we don't lose these organizations and we don't watch them fall to the wayside just because of a border issue. So if anybody's out there has got any pull, got any tug, got any weight, you can throw around a little bit, maybe you can have a conversation on seeing if we can do something to save these teams. I'd like to see these teams across the board be able to survive, because you're in a situation right now where there's 4 teams, all predominantly Americans on these rosters, and it'd be really nice to see that happen. So Westchester County, seeing you coming on board, and I see Tampa coming on board. Thank you very much. Don't forget, ask questions if you got them. I'll try to get to as many questions as I can, if I can get to any as we go along. So what are your thoughts on all this? You're seeing a lot of action coming up, and I personally am looking at this and I'm thinking it's going to be disappointing if these franchises have to shelve themselves completely, especially because I think there's some avenues where we could do some things to keep these franchises alive and see them stay involved in hockey. Any thoughts on that? Get a hold of me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can either do it right now live by sending a comment, or you can absolutely put something on either the DM directly to me, or you can use the discussion group to discuss this too. I'll start a topic on this to make sure we go through this. So that's it on the breaking news side. I think that's a lot, though. Holy smokes, we've got news coming in from the BCHL. We've got news coming in from the Buffalo Junior Sabres and the North American Hockey League, the NA3HL. We've got news coming in from the OJHL. And I think the 2 leagues we're waiting for right now to speak out on all issues. We're looking for some information from the EHL on when their start date is, and of course the USHL on their start date. So I just got Jeff, just to confirm, the Junior Sabres are not playing this season. That is correct. The Junior Sabres have announced that they will not be playing for this season, and they're taking the year off. So that's the way it stands right now. So I just saw the comment coming up. That's a lot to absorb. I know. It's a heck of a lot to absorb, and but there's people out there that are trying to take advantage of this information. I know there's one source that's trying to say, the sky's falling, everybody go play hockey in Europe. My suggestion is, pump the brakes a few times before you sign your kid up to take him over to Europe. I don't really know if that's going to be the safe route or the best route, not only during a pandemic, but to get exposed to the college level. Now, if you end up doing it, you end up doing it, but let it be for other reasons than the pandemic. I know of very few Americans that go over to Europe and play. Most players find a good situation in North America, and there's still, if you're one of the players that are involved in these teams that are being pulled back, or you're one of the American players that are playing in the CJHL at all, or you're playing in the Greater Ontario League, or you're playing in some of the junior B leagues in British Columbia or Alberta or Manitoba or Saskatchewan, there is plenty of hockey here, and there's strong programs at all levels. You just got to do your homework and make sure that you're keeping the door open. And I am absolutely positive, and if you've been paying attention to the show or going through everything we've been talking about, you have been prepared for this, and you've been waiting and putting some plans together just in case this happens. So I hope that helps a little bit. And let's get on to a little bit of analysis of things that's happened over the last few weeks. Or actually, I want to go to the null draft and catch you up a little bit on that. So I shared with you last week, I put a document out, I put a video out on the Facebook page, and I put a video out on the group, and it's on my website, it's on YouTube, on what it takes to go through and do an analysis of a draft. I put information out on how I derive the information and the two key things you're looking for as you build out a draft. Now, what I did this week and what I told you I'd do is I actually went through and compared what's going on with the original North American Hockey League pre-draft. I forget the actual name they called it, but they did a preliminary draft first. Then they did their normal draft this last week. And I compared, and I just started doing this. I don't have a lot of information to share with you, but I can tell you in the pre-draft, they went much older in the pre-draft, and they went much heavier into the USHL. I'd shown some concerns that they're not trying to take advantage of the pandemic enough, and I hate to say it that way, but remember, this is still a business, and it's about market share, and you're trying to get the best team possible. And if the situation's there and it's put in play, every team should be doing whatever they can to improve their roster, improve their team, and take advantage of what's there. If these players don't have a place to play, you should be reaching out and trying to grow them. So between the two drafts, the numbers look pretty good. And interesting about this is between the two drafts, 46 of these players, 46 out of about 130, 135, are already committed players. And I'm comparing the whole pre-draft and the first two rounds of the null draft. I haven't had a chance to go through and do all of this. Once again, this process takes days. There's a lot of what I show you right here. This list is the pre-draft, and then I've got the actual draft. So in the pre-draft, you can see that I go out and I actually build out information myself. I add this on, which is what team they played for, what year, what height, and then where they're at. And the interesting thing about this, and I know you can't really see this well at home, is if you look at some of the players on here, 13 of the college commits out of the 46 that were committed on this whole list, 13 of them are slated to start college in the fall. They're slated to start with their team in the actual fall, which is interesting to me, because either there's some inside scoop on this or there's a real risk being taken by the teams that are actually trying to pick up this player. So if you drafted a player that's actually supposed to start in the fall, you think you can get him back? Do you think you can get him one, or are they leveraging the pandemic, thinking that there's a possibility that none of these schools are going to play in the fall, but junior hockey's still going to move forward? So I don't know the answer to that, but there's 13 junior teams that took a risk on a player that's actually slated to start in the fall at college, Division I college hockey. So we'll see which way that goes and how that goes. I'll be very interested to see how that plays out. So I really urge you to take a look at the video I put together. I spent a lot of time trying to show you where the numbers come from, where they're derived, and it'll help you a lot understand the process and understand where these players come from, because I take the time to actually show you where they come from and how you can get that information too. You don't have to be an expert. It's not rocket science to do this. You might have to pay for a premium membership on Elite Prospects, but across the board, it's not a hard process. It's time consuming. That's why I try to do it for you and help you out a little bit in the process. So as you go through this, some of the things that to know is there is a big push, and a couple surprises. The surprise is they went after 23 prep players, American prep players, between the two drafts, the first two rounds of the real draft and then the pre-draft for the, I think there was 80 players that were taken in the pre-draft. So they put an emphasis on prep. Now, if you followed the show in the past or the live stream in the past, you know that if you're coming out of prep and you're headed to juniors, the Division I caliber prep players are headed almost 50-50. It's a little bit more slated towards the USHL. They're headed to the BCHL and the USHL. So if Americans are not allowed in the BCHL, that's going to push a big number back down to the States. So not only the kids that are already drafted, but there are 70 some odd kids that I went through that are already on rosters already for the BCHL that were not drafted or not part of these numbers. They're just already slated to be up there. Either they signed in a tender, they were pulled in from last year, their trade was made. Not sure all the details on that, But we're in a situation where I told you last week, not every USHL team, remember there's only 16 UHL teams out there, not all of them are happy to be looking at a BCHL player coming back. So they're not sitting there going, oh, we can't wait, we can't wait. A lot of the BCHL teams are taking the stance, hey, you had a shot with us before. We either drafted you, we asked you to come to camp, we offered you a tender, whatever the case may be. And they're going to draw a line in the sand and say, sorry, you had your chance to play in the USHL. You opted not to, which is going to put a big emphasis on those players finding homes in the North American Hockey League. So through this pandemic, the league that possibly comes out of this the strongest, and the league that comes out of this with the most talent is not going to be the USHL. They're going to be fine. They're going to be pretty much steady as they go. The BCHL is going to lose their Americans along with the rest of the CJHL teams if this stays the way it stays right now. So the North American Hockey League stands to gain the most out of this. Why the North American Hockey League versus, let's say, the NCDC? Well, the NCDC does not have the track record. There's only a couple of teams in the NCDC that have the same track record as the majority of the teams in the NAL do, the North American Hockey League. Second, something came up today that I didn't know. If you play in the North American Hockey League as a Canadian or as a European, you register with USA Hockey. I don't believe there's an extra insurance claim, and if anybody knows this for sure, and all the years that I was coaching or GMing or owning, I never heard of a supplemental insurance cost for players, and the numbers between $800 and $900 is a supplemental cost for a Canadian to play in the NCDC to pick up their insurance. So if anybody knows if USA Hockey is charging on top of just their normal USA Hockey registration, I'd love to know. I'd love to know if that's the case or not. If you can either DM me, send me a message, you can even comment right here. That's a piece of information that was new to me, but that would preclude people from wanting to go to a league, 2 free leagues, and one charges you $800 for insurance and one charges you less than $100. I don't know what that number is, $40, $50, $60, whatever it is to register now. But that's going to be interesting. I think the league that comes out of this the strongest is the North American Hockey League. I think the league that gets hit the hardest with this is the BCHL, because remember, 125, 150 is the number hovering around there of Americans that play in that league. They have a large contingent of American players every single year. So will that league survive? Absolutely. Will those teams find players? Absolutely. They will draw from the ranks. Maybe they just have to be a little younger this year. Maybe their third and fourth lines aren't the same, but the talent's still going to be in that league. The talent across the board is still the BCHL is being the top dog. It's just going to be different. And what does that mean for the future? Does that mean that next year we actually see the North American Hockey League keep the momentum, and maybe they were able to retain some of these players, and they get some retention, some market share retention from the players that come down and play in the league? It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I don't know the relationship that Wenatchee has with both the BCHL, the CJHL, and with Hockey Canada, and I really don't know what the relationship with Wenatchee has with USA Hockey and with the North American Hockey League. Do they leave on good terms? I don't know if there can be a conversation there, but that's getting back to earlier in the show when I said it'd be very, very interesting if they could find a way to keep those American teams that are participating in Canada right now participating in some form or fashion in the United States. So give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think on this. I know we covered a lot tonight. I know we covered the draft. I know we covered the null. I know we covered all the breaking news. We even talked about my silly trip to Boston. Thank you for watching tonight. I know we didn't go a full hour tonight. I think we're at about 45 minutes. But unless you have questions, I'll keep chatting here for a little bit to see if something comes in on questions. And the biggest thing I can tell you is I don't think the final shoe's fallen on all this, if that's a proper nomenclature on that. I think that there's still a little bit to go on the downside before we start seeing some level ground or some upside on this. I don't know if we're going to see other teams that decide that they can't participate in other leagues. That's not really what I can forecast. I can tell you that I talk to as many people in leadership positions weekly as I can, and right now I think you and I are just as informed as anybody on the top of the heap. They're all waiting to see now. Interesting, you might have heard what the commissioner of the OJHL said. He has 22 communities, okay, that he's got to make sure that they're compliant. I think he said he had 9 different health care programs from all the different provincial programs. And then, of course, he's got the province of Ontario. Then he's got Canada, nationally. He's got to comply with all those rules. And I can't imagine what it's like to sit down and try to weed through all that to feel comfortable to start your season. And it's no different in the States. You've got city, county, state, and federal rules that you've got to comply with. And maybe there's some other rules there that I'm missing, but all those are in play. So if you're looking to start junior hockey back up and be in compliance with all this, a lot of people are taking a lot of risk by putting a start date right now when we know that this is a political hotbed. We know that there is truth to the fact that this is a pandemic, but I don't think we're going to see this clarified until after the elections. So, and I hate to say that, it doesn't matter if you're left or right. I think we can all agree that this is being politicized beyond hockey, and we are in the hockey world are taking the brunt of this. But I gotta say, folks, for all of you that are putting out the memes and you're showing the soccer player versus the hockey player, for all of you putting out the memes that are showing the basketball player and the hockey player, the baseball player and the hockey player, and you're saying, look how protected we are. First of all, P.S., you're not wearing a real mask, okay? That you're still breathing, and we still go in the corners and we battle. I'm not comfortable right now saying that those memes are correct. I think that we've got to, unless we plan on putting on. Now, I did see some modifications out there for the clear shields where they actually build in a piece for the bottom so that there is a masking element to them. But I'm not sure we're ready yet to say that that's the answer for our hockey players. And for those of you who think that the stinky equipment's already built up immunity on the players, I'm not really sure that's the truth either. So we got to be careful on that. So, hey, South Dakota, thanks for coming in. Potsdam, thanks for coming in. Riverside, California, coming in. I know you guys are coming in at the late. Hopefully you can pick up the rebroadcast that'll be right out as soon as the show's over. Don't forget, folks, if you haven't hired an advisor and you're still out there looking, I'm not an advisor. I don't play one on TV. I don't play one on the internet. It's not my job. My job is, though, to make sure you have all the information you need to go through this process the proper way. I put out a document for you. No strings attached. It's on the Facebook page. It's on the Facebook discussion group as we speak right now. Now, there is one little glitch. There's a picture. The link is above the picture and the words. You got to click on that. Don't click the picture. The picture won't take you anywhere. A few people have already DM'd me saying, how do I get in? I fixed that already. Well, I didn't fix the picture, but I told them how to get on there the right way. So make sure you get that document. It doesn't matter if you're 8, 10, 12 years old with your kids. Doesn't matter if you're 18 or 19. This is good information for you. We've got over 200 professionals, well over 100 family advisors that are part of our community. And that's great. Use this document. Use it for your clients so they can go through a checklist. Great advisors have no problem going through an independent, unbiased process and checklist. You know who's going to be complaining, though? The bad advisors. So if you come in with your checklist and all of a sudden your advisor starts getting nervous, I don't know if I want to say any more on that. Just let that go. Roswell, Georgia, thank you for coming in. So another question came in. I knew if I tap dance long enough, I'd see a question come in. Will U.S. students in Canada be able to play? Well, that's a good question, and I'm assuming you're talking about playing in the U Sport programs, or you're talking about playing Canadian college hockey. I'm reading this right now that if you're American, and according to what I heard from the OJHL commissioner earlier and what I've read so far, if you're an American, you're not going back to Canada right now. Now, is there some type of student visa that's involved? Absolutely, there could be things that are above and beyond just the junior or youth level of hockey, and maybe there's some things going on there. I'm not an expert on that. I really can't answer that. I'm sure, though, that if you reach out to your school, if you're able to go up there and go to school, I'm sure you're going to be able to play. So if you're an American going to a Canadian college, I got to assume that you're going to be able to get in the door. And if you can get in the door, excuse me, I shouldn't say it that way. If you're an American going to a Canadian college and you're allowed to go back to Canada to go to school, I'm assuming that you should be able to play hockey too. Now, that's an assumption, that's an opinion. I am not an internet lawyer. I can't tell you for a fact that's the truth, but I hope that helps a little bit. Montreal, thanks for jumping aboard. Sandra, 100% on something. I don't know what I got 100% for, but I'm glad you gave me 100%, and I'm glad that you're participating. Thank you so much. If there's no more questions, I'm going to call it quits for the night on that. You probably are already tired of this old guy talking so much hockey. But reach out to me in any way you need. And remember, I'm an educational source. I'm in the process business. I'm not in the advisement business. So I can lead you to different sources. I can lead you to different things. And I can also tell you great stories about where to go when you're traveling in the hockey world. I'm going to put a weather report together next week, and I'm going to give you some different places all over North America. We're going to be talking about the OJHL and some great places to go. Because if you're up in Alberta, how can you go up there and not go up and see the wild horses? Unbelievable experience up there. So we're going to talk about some things like that. We'll do that in the future. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. Please do me a favor. I really would appreciate it if you take some time to share this. When this rebroadcast comes out, share it with somebody. Share it with your team. Share it with a group. Share it with your coach, your organization. Maybe you can get it put on your organization site. Put it on any other sites that you know, some groups or some other pages. This will go up on YouTube too if you want to share it there too. Anywhere you can get the message out. Our overall group right now, between my Facebook friends that are hockey friends and the discussion group and the Facebook page, we are now past 10,000, and which is awesome. That's great. But our goal is 100,000. We want to grow this group so people keep learning, and we just get the information out there on unbiased information about how the process works. So anything you can do to help me grow this group, I sure would appreciate it. If you got any questions, please DM me. I'll be glad to try to answer as much as I can. Have a great Sunday night for all of you that are still awake and I didn't put to sleep. And we'll see you next week, unless there's something important that comes up in between, and I'll see you sooner. Take care.